Welcome to the next installment of my video lecture series in economics. And in this particular video lecture, I'm going to be taking a look at general equilibrium. And in particular, what we're doing different here is taking a look at how a change in equilibrium in one marketplace impacts the equilibrium in another marketplace, and how, for example, we have a change in market A, it impacts market B, and then when market B adjusts, how does that impact market A? Sort of an iterative process of looking at the interactions of the changes in equilibrium. So realize that previously some of the things we looked at were considered to be a partial equilibrium analysis. So we're just looking at if demand changed in a particular market, how that impacted that market only. Whereas in a general equilibrium analysis, we're looking at how all markets reach equilibrium all at the same time. So realize that this is a little more complicated than things we've looked at previously. In particular, if equilibrium changes in market A, it's going to impact the equilibrium in market B, and as market B moves towards equilibrium, that might impact market A again. And this kind of iterative process will continue until both markets reach complete equilibrium. So here we have two markets. The graph in the top shows us the market for corn, and the graph in the bottom shows the market for soybeans. So we have supply and demand for corn, and we have supply and demand for soybeans. So let's assume that there's a change in the demand for corn. So the demand decreases for corn. This lowers the equilibrium price from P0 of corn to P1 of corn, and we have a new equilibrium quantity of corn. So what we're interested in is how this is going to impact the market for soybeans. So how is this going to impact the market for soybeans, which is shown in the bottom portion of this graph here. So if the price of corn falls, this is going to impact both demand and supply. Okay, so from the demand side, so if the price of corn falls, how is that going to impact the demand for soybeans? If we assume that they're substitute goods for one another, they're both vegetable products and they are substitutable for one another, the demand curve is going to shift to the left as people substitute away from soybeans and purchase more corn. So we see that shift in the demand for soybeans from D0 to D1 in the bottom part. Then we also have to take into consideration any supply side considerations. Think of this, if you're a farmer who was growing corn and you saw that there was a dramatic decrease in the price of corn, there's a high likelihood that you will substitute away to the production of something else. And if that something else is soybeans, the reaction to farmers is going to be an increase in the supply of soybeans due to the fact that the price of corn went down, and farmers are going to substitute away from the production of corn because corn is less valuable of a commodity relative to soybeans. So we have an increase in the supply curve for soybeans. So after this reaction to the change in demand for corn, which lowered the price, we see that this also lowers the price for soybeans, and it's a dual effect. It's a decrease in demand and an increase in supply. So now that this has reached an equilibrium here, how is that going to impact the corn market? So we are going to assume that demand conditions aren't going to change, and solely we're going to see this as a supply side phenomenon. So what's going to happen is some farmers who were producing soybeans are going to go and produce corn because now soybeans fell so much in price that now it's relatively more attractive to produce corn. So we're going to see an increase in the supply of corn due to the fact that we had that dramatic decrease in the price of soybeans. Again, how is this going to impact the market for soybeans? Well, as corn falls, again, what's going to happen is people will substitute away from soybeans because corn is so much less expensive. So the demand curve will shift to the left. And again, what will we end up saying that because corn has fallen in price once again relative to soybeans, that the supply of soybeans will increase in reaction to the fall in the price of corn. So just realize that this type of iterative process continues, and what you end up seeing is that changes in the price of corn and soybeans get smaller and smaller as we go through each additional step of this process. And as you can take a look here, we have a summarization of the adjustments that occurred. So for example, initially what happened is that the price of corn was equal to $2.15 per bushel. And after the change in demand, the price fell to $1.92. The reaction in the soybean market was for the price of soybeans to fall from $4.12 to $3.83. And as you can see subsequently from that each time there's a change in the price, it's getting smaller. So for example, after the reaction of the corn market to the lowering of the price, or the equilibrium price of soybeans to 3.83, the price again falls to $1.91, but it's only a penny change. And what we end up seeing is finally that the total change in the price of corn is going to be equal to $1.90, and the total change in soybeans is going to be to $3.82. So the point of this is to realize that each of these markets are interconnected to one another. When the equilibrium changes in one marketplace, for example in corn, that's going to impact the equilibrium in soybeans, which as that equilibrium changes, that's going to feed back into the corn market. That'll adjust to a new equilibrium until we get to a new equilibrium in the soybean market, until all these steps iterate all the way through until we get to the final equilibrium where there's no change in the prices of corn or of soybeans.